what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh King.
In the year 2000.
You did that last year when we
In
did
the
this.
year 2000.
So we're going to make some guesses, and this is Sam's song whenever we make guesses about
Do you remember the reference? Do you remember the reference?
I wasn't alive to have a memory of the reference.
Conan O'Brien, back in the day,
he did this skit. You tell me this.
From the 90s, and it was one of my favorite skits, and I will forever use that reference because it's just stuck in my brain from when I was a teenager, and I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. He would prognosticate about the future. He'd prognosticate about the things that would happen in the year 2000.
Well, we're going to talk about the year 2024.
Whoa! I won't
so much further than 2000. All right. But first, we got to do our sponsors, or we won't be.
You know what? You know what I expect to happen in 2024? I expect a lot of churches to contact church teams because they have your church management software solution. They do it better than anybody else. They have a scalable system that enables you to get the right price for the right service. They can give you the whole suite of tools. They can give you a portion of what you need, and they can grow with your church. So, whether you're a large church or small church, Church Teams is for you. They sponsor the show. We're very grateful for that sponsorship. But more than the sponsorship, I really believe in what they do. I really believe in just the company, the people, the service that they provide. We've had Boyd on the show, and he's the co-founder, and he just genuinely loves the church. He genuinely loves all kinds of churches. And he really wants to provide solutions for churches that work. So you can go to est.church, get their free offer for a couple of months, give them a try, contact them. You can check them out at their website as well. So Church Teams is the sponsor of the show. Thank you, Church Teams. Great provider of church resources.
Yep. So here we are in December. Merry Christmas to you, Samuel, and Merry Christmas to all of you that are listening. We're very close to 2024. We want to talk a little bit about the trends, some of the data we're seeing, just some of our general opinions. So I guess this is the warning before the show that this is just our opinion. This is just what we're seeing. So, yeah. Sam,
what does the future hold? All right. So I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Give me your... And by the way, I don't know what Sam's about to say, and he doesn't know what I'm about to say. So these are hot takes. It's going to be fun.
Well, we literally just decided right before we hit the record button what we were going to talk about. So literally, it's like, we don't want to talk about. Let's just do this. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, we do it every year.
So I think that the church is going to continue to lose ground to other nonprofits when it comes to giving. Since they've been tracking this, which dates back decades, churches used to receive something like over half of all charitable giving, and it may even be more than that if you go way back. And now it's a significantly less. So charitable giving is actually up significantly since they've been tracking it. But it ticked down a little bit last year, and I think that the church portion will continue to get smaller. And I have a theory about this, and my theory is that pastors don't talk about giving, and they don't ask key givers to give. And it's this whole
nonprofits do. I mean, that's a massive part of what they do.
Crushing it. They make these phone calls to big donors, and they basically say, "Hey, I need $1 million." And the people that give $1 million go, "Okay, what do you need it for?" "Well, I'm going to build a building." "Great, here's $1 million." But pastors don't do that.
Now, you got to get better at that.
The way I just said it might be a bit crass, and you got to be careful with your donors. But I think everyone understands the point that I'm making. If you don't talk about giving, and if you don't do donor development in your church the way other nonprofits do it, you're gonna continue to lose ground to them. So what does the future hold in 2024? I don't think we're going to see this turn around. I think pastors are still going to, I don't know who gives what. I don't need to know who gives what and all that. Okay, I understand. I never see a name and an amount either. I never see so-and-so gave this amount. I never see that. But I do get a report as to, hey, top 25 faithful givers and and mixed in with the biggest givers. So I don't know who gives what, and I don't know exactly where they are, but I know who to talk to. And I think every pastor should do that. I don't know that
Yeah.
every pastor needs to know an amount.
No.
For a lot of people that would be inappropriate, and understand, and I respect that, and that's where I am. But
Mm-hmm.
goodness, you've got to be talking to your faithful people, and you've got to be talking to the people that are high capacity givers. Otherwise, they're just going to give to the university. They're going to give to the hospital. They ain't giving to you.
Oh, yeah. Don't give to the university. Yes, but I would just agree with you. And this really is a side note, not really the point of our show. But I would say donor development is huge. Also, someone in your church, likely, the accountant or the bookkeeper, knows these things. They have to know them, right? And so you're saying, well, I don't want to know that. Well, that's great. Okay, fine, don't know it. But you could still have that person generate a report and then send out 100 thank you cards or thank you notes at the end of the year. That's just a small donor development type of thing. Or generate a report that says these are the first time givers we had this last month, and send out and it could be a card from you that just says, look, even though I don't know your name and I don't know the amount you gave, I want to say thank you. That kind of thing. You can make it in a way that sounds very right hand doesn't know left hand, but at the same time, you're being appreciative. All right. Here's one of my prognostications. I think the issue of women in leadership is likely to come to a boiling point. And here's some of the reasons that I think that.
Well, maybe in certain tribes, and other tribes kind of have it figured out.
Yeah, and other tribes are messed up completely on it. So here's what I think. In the Southern Baptist Convention, which, like it or not, is the largest denomination outside the Catholic Church. So that has what we just went through is this state convention season, and not too long ago, a couple months ago, and most of them, or a lot of them, especially the bigger ones, punted on this issue, and they punted to try to get past the Southern Baptist Convention, which will happen next June. In June in Indianapolis, Southern Baptist Convention is going to have to make a decision on this. So there's this pressure mounting, this boiling that is happening that will either erupt or, I've been to situations where you think it's going to be a fight, doesn't end up being a fight, and it's a nothing burger. And perhaps is what's going to happen in June. However, it looks likely that because so many state conventions punted or refused to talk about the issue, that they're waiting on the big convention happen. And then when the Southern Baptist Convention makes its decision on whatever it's going to do, or the fight it's going to have, or how it's going to draw its lines, that will have a trickle-down effect. So I think it's going to come to a boiling point, something that's going to really be notable.
Yeah, I think you're right. I will just say this is a classic case of it's in the tennis classification. It's an unforced error, right? So
I thought that was baseball.
No, I think it's tennis where somebody scores a point. I don't know tennis that well, but it's because the other person just messed up.
Right. Yeah.
It's an unforced error. Mm-hmm. And I certainly think that's the case with this issue. Now, if you're a woman and you're listening to this, I don't mean to diminish any sort of pain or experience that you've had when it comes to, church life. I don't mean that at all. I just mean this has become so big and so hot and so controversial. Mm-hmm. And I'm over here on the sidelines going, yeah, I care for the women and I want them to thrive in their roles in churches. But the fact that we've made all this such a controversy to me is like, I cannot figure out why this has become such a big deal.
Right. Yeah. And it seems to be something particularly talking about the Southern Baptist Convention, but it's not just the SBC. United Methodists have sort of stepped in it as well in different times.
Well, the United Methodists stepped in it, not over. I mean, I think they've got the women's roles figured out. It's more like, it's more on the gay LGBT stuff.
Yeah. It's related. But my point is, we tend to just, when simple readings of text or, understandings of things get so complicated because we just want to fight about things. And I think that is, as you said, an unforced error. But that is my prediction for 2024. I think it's going to come to a boiling point, and we're going to have to figure something out on that stuff.
Yeah, and I'll just say this for your individual church. A lot of individual churches can't do anything about the denomination, right? Right. I just say in your individual church, make sure that you practice equal pay for women, please. That's a good place to start, just to show that you actually care about this issue. Whatever you call that, the woman on staff, as director or pastor, that's a really big deal. Minister, whatever term you use. I mean, it gets a bit weird, but just make sure that she has an equal pay system in place for her. I think that's fair, no matter where your doctrine falls on the issue. Which leads us into the next one that I wanted to talk about is I think denominations are still going to struggle more, continue to fall apart, and because of multiple enforced errors over many years, with one exception. What is the one exception when it comes to denominational struggles? Who will actually do well in 2024?
I feel like this is in the eye of the beholder type of question, but the Global Methodist, is that what you're thinking?
Global Methodist. Yeah, and I don't even think it's in the eye of the beholder. I think they will continue to grow. I think they will continue to get stronger. And I think that a lot more people will be paying attention to what's going on with Global Methodist Church. Truly global. That's not just something in their title. They really are global in what they do. They don't have a lot of controversy. They have a strong biblical doctrine, but they're broad enough to where they're not doing a lot of these unforced errors. So I think what you're going to see and I say this as a Baptist myself, I'm not with them on certain parts of their doctrine, but I am with them on how they're going about building a denomination. I think they're doing a fabulous job, and I think more people should pay attention to what they are doing, because there's a lot to learn from them. And I think that they're just going to continue to grow. There's not going to be a whole lot of news about them because there's not going to be a whole lot of controversy.
I'll give you another one.
And they're going to benefit because of it. Yeah, what's that?
Texas Baptist. And
I
know that sounds like I'm a homer, but it's for many of the same reasons. They're not messing up. They're not unforced errors. They seem to be much more focused on unity and on the mission than they are trying to draw lines between one another. So, and again, I don't think that they're going to catch a lot of the media. You're not going to have a lot of the media because for a long time they've sort of been sidelined by the SBC. So they just kind of do their own thing over there, and that doing your own thing, being faithful, tends to work out in the long run. So I think
I agree. I absolutely love what Texas Baptists are doing, and that's an old school state convention is the technical term there. The denominational group. They've been around a long time. I got one more I'm going to add, and then we'll move on. Free Will Baptists under Eddie Moody's leadership. They're probably off the radar of a lot of our listeners. What Eddie Moody is doing with the Free Will Baptists and helping a lot of those churches get revitalized, because a lot of those churches are struggling, is really it's a true success story there. So generally, denominations are going to struggle, continue to struggle, continue to have these unforced errors, continue to just do stupid, and except Texas Baptist, Global Methodists, and how Eddie Moody is leading the Free Will Baptists.
Hey, listen,
and there's probably some others that we're missing in terms of, they're doing a lot of good.
I was just going to say, look, if you're on Twitter and you know of another one that you just think is getting it done, let us know. We're not exhaustive on this. This is just what we have experience with and what we're seeing. All right. So denominations are going to struggle. The women's issue is going to come to a head, at least in the Southern Baptist Convention. Donors are going to be down. And what?
Mega churches.
They're going to struggle.
Anytime I talk about mega churches, I get a lot of views on my articles.
All right, so let's use some of that magic for the podcast. So, mega churches are going to continue to, or they are going to what?
The movement is waning. It's no longer in ascendancy, and you're going to see fewer mega churches long term. There will always be around. They will always be that one big church in the community that is like Jupiter. It's just this great gravitational force to it. But I think the movement is waning. It will continue to wane. I think more and more people will be paying attention to that. And I think you're going to start seeing more mega churches begin to struggle with things like deferred maintenance. You're going to start hearing more and more stories. It won't all happen in 2024. We've got 5 to 10 more years of this. But I think the narrative that you will start hearing is, wow, It costs $1 million to replace carpet. Wow. It costs $2 million to paint the building. And we don't really have those funds. We built this $50 million campus, $100 million campus, and now it takes tens of millions of dollars to keep it up. And we just don't have those funds. And I think that's going to become more and more the narrative. Not that these churches will dwindle and die. There's still going to be a lot of people that go there, but they're not going to have the growth curve to help them fund the deferred maintenance. And it's really going to start catching up with them. And I think you're going to start hearing that narrative, although it won't reach its peak for another 5 or 10 years.
Because what are you talking about here? Like megas, they really peaked when? When was that?
It's a very clear line, 2012. So you can chart this out. The peak of the megachurch movement in terms of the number of megachurches occurred somewhere around 2012. A lot of it depends on who's counting and how, but right in that range. And since then, they've been declining. At 2012, there was like 1,750 megachurches, and I estimate that there's probably close to right around 1,000 right now. So it's way off its peak.
My point is that, if you go back 10 years, if you go 2002 to 2012, something like that, that would be like, so if you imagine these megachurches are peaking, they're really coming into their full, that's when they built and or added on or something like that. And so now we are 10 to 20 years away from that. Air conditioner units start going out about that time. Carpet needs to be replaced about that time. Trends, just styles go out. It's no longer all just like light gray, and now it's going back to the tans. All that kind of stuff is moving, and that's when these churches who have declined a little bit, especially took hits during COVID, they now don't have the funds or the people to replace those things. And what you find is that, like any church, regardless of the size, that these people that built up this campus, that bought that land back then, don't want to get rid of it. They are committed to it. So you're kind of locked into the glory of the past and the needs of today. That's going to cause a problem. Not for everybody, but for some people.
I was just in a very large megachurch. This is a $100 million campus. I won't mention which one, but I walked into the bathrooms, and these bathrooms are now 20 years old because this campus was built approximately 20 years ago. And I walked in and I was like, it was a Mediterranean style that was really popular. Which now when it came in, it came out, it went out of style just as fast as it was in style. And I'm like, man, this looks so dated. When you used to walk into a church in the 90s and it felt like the 70s, that 70s style. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. A lot of these mega churches where you walk in, you're like, okay, it's not bad, but man, it just feels so dated. And because it costs so much to replace all of the bathrooms, it just stays the same. So I think the elephant in the room is the room. And that's you're going to start having that conversation about mega churches.
What a great one. You coined something.
I think that's in my book, The Surprising Return of the Neighborhood Church.
Okay, cool.
So if you haven't picked that up, I go into a lot of detail in The Surprising Return of the Neighborhood Church about the waning megachurch movement. So I'd encourage you.
All right, so this one is not going to surprise anybody, but it dovetails right into what you're saying there. These megachurches, these larger churches, they came to peak under a different style of pastor, and that pastor is of a certain age, and so you're going to continue to see that coaching carousel spin, baby, spin. And it is getting harder. So on one end, we've had many shows about this. We've talked a lot about this. 2024 is going to be no different. On one end, you have seminaries continually talking about how enrollment is down. There are young ministers who are just not feeling. We did an episode here recently with Eric Choke about ministers just not. What is it? What did he say? I'm trying to remember what he said, but it was essentially this idea that, like, when you're called to ministry, you may, as a millennial or as an older millennial, go, I don't want to go into ministry, but I'll still minister. You know what I'm talking about, Sam, there? Yeah. So there's less supply of pastors is what I'm saying.
It was a great episode on bivocational pastors. You should definitely go back and listen to that. Eric did a phenomenal job. The idea of what ministry is changing. The idea of what the pastor is changing.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. And listen, these retiring boomers,
they
didn't do anything wrong. I mean, it was just their era, their time. And a lot of them figured it out and actually did fairly well for them and for their churches. But
these guys
we're 2 generations removed from that at this point.
Right. These guys are our heroes. We're not talking bad about them. So what I'm trying to say here is, in just demographically, when you start to put things in the blender, demographically, you have this huge swath of a certain age of pastors that got these churches to a huge size during a certain sort of cultural time in America, right? The culture has changed. The pastors are retiring, and the churches are now not the same size. So now you're looking for replacements for those guys who are not cut from that cloth. And there are not as many of them in the first place. And so it is this cocktail that's going to come out of this blender that is going to make some very interesting shifts.
So and all these search committees are drunk, is what you're saying.
That is not what I said. The other thing is that, like, when you talk about search committees and when you talk about like firms and churches, if they don't grasp that, which some do, and that's great when they do, but if they don't understand that shift, culture has changed, pastors have changed, they'll be looking for a unicorn, and they'll hire something that sometimes doesn't fit. And I've seen it, you've seen it over and over. These mega churches, they'll hire this character that's larger than life, and within a year, 18 months, that fizzles out, it burns out, and they're looking again. And that decreases the size of the church, increases the problems, etc.
Yeah, it's not even a large church problem. It's an all-size church problem.
It is.
The average age of a pastor right now is 60, and it's only getting older. So that means there's a ton of pastors retiring. I think you're going to continue to hear about this in 2024. And the way you'll hear about it is we can't find a student pastor. We can't find a worship pastor. We can't find a children's minister. We can't. And oh, by the way, because giving is down a little bit, I don't think giving is going to, drop off a cliff or anything, but because giving is down a little bit, what was a full-time position is now a part-time position, and it's even harder to fill this position. And I think you're going to see just more and more of that, not only in 2024, but in the next several years of, we're just having trouble finding someone. And I've seen a lot of churches, and again, I don't want to name names because this is not what we do on the show, but I've seen some churches, significant churches, name brand churches that everyone knows, or at least they're known in their region, at least, kind of settle on a pastor. Like it's like, that guy got the gig. And you're like, yeah, there was no one else. Like literally there was just nobody else that either was willing to go, or they just ran out of candidates.
Yeah, I think people would be shocked if they found out how few, because it's not the same. It's not only are there fewer pastors wanting to be in these types of positions, there's also just a shift in the mentality. Guys of that prime hiring age, whatever you want to call that, they're not as interested in those really large churches. They're more looking for factors like close to home, family, how my work-life balance sort of schedule tension is going to be. All of that sort of stuff is more the issue than what used to be a radio broadcast. That kind of stuff used to really attract people. That doesn't attract us anymore.
Yeah, and in today's world of technology, you don't need the large church platform to do your own thing.
Right. You could have just two guys talking into microphones, and they just have a podcast. And
yeah, we used to have three. God rest his soul, Micah.
Rest in peace, Micah.
We miss you, Micah. I interacted with him on Twitter the other day.
Did you?
Anyway,
he will randomly, for our listeners, people are like, whatever happened to Micah? Well, he's still around. Anytime there's a Florida man news piece, we have you could literally scroll through our text thread. That's essentially it. Or something great happens to one of our kids. That's life,
Yeah, and Micah is Florida man, because he grew up right around Marianna and Graceville, which is basically South Alabama. But I mean, that's where he grew up. I mean,
L.A.
Well, people from North Florida wouldn't call themselves from L.A., Lower Alabama.
I apologize. Truly, I am. Sorry.
All right. So we've talked about giving.
Yeah.
Women in leadership coming to a boiling point. The megachurch movement continuing to wane. More of a conversation around it. Denominational struggles, this pastoral carousel, as you said, and retiring boomers. Let's do one more. What do we think that will happen in 2024?
I think the seminaries are going to continue to shift. I think that there is a real drawback on the idea. I think when you hear seminarians talk, those who are just faithful seminarians, they are very, very committed to this idea of trying to revive a antiquated degree that is too large for most people to get, and trying to get them to come to campus to take this massive 3 to 4 year degree. And so I think it's just by the nature of it going to continue to decline, which is going to hurt enrollment, which is going to hurt these giant campuses. Same things that churches are dealing with big campuses, seminaries are going to deal with. And so I think there's going to be sort of a reshuffling of the way that seminary education happens. I think there's going to be a greater emphasis on distance education, or that in the church type of education, the partnership with the church. It's going to look very different, and it's going to have a bunch of pluses and a bunch of minuses, but yeah, it's going to continue to shift.
Yeah, a 90-hour on-campus MDiv is niche now. It's not what everyone's pursuing. That's a very niche sort of degree that that is for only a very small, very, very small part of the market. So if you are a seminary and you're like, we're going to go all in with a, 80, 90-hour MDiv, and we want people on campus to take it. And this is where we're putting all of our we're all in on this. Well, you're dead. You just died because that is not the market. That's not where people are. So I'm with you. I think seminary education will shift. I will add a little bit more. I think certifications will continue to rise. Guess how many students we have at Church Answers University right now? Just guess. I know you don't know.
I don't. 1,000.
I wish we did. It's a little. We just started it, and we have over 300 students.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Yeah,
three. That's bigger than a lot of seminaries.
A lot of seminaries. Yeah, which is surprising to some people that how small seminaries are. But yes, 300 is amazing.
300 is actually a pretty decent sized seminary. If you look at all of the seminaries. People tend to think of like Southern Seminary, which is like the biggest, right? That's huge. That's a massive seminary. Most are small, and not only is there there's less young people getting into ministry. The seminaries are hanging on to a really old paradigm that is just not attractive to anyone. So I'm with you there. I think certifications will be on the rise. That's why we're getting into it. So if you're interested, churchanswers.university provides, really good education for a fraction, about like one class, 2 classes, and you get a really good education. And oh, by the way, all of your books are included. Why don't seminaries do that? When you join Church Answers University, you get all the books that you need, and you can put it on a payment plan. So the future is more like that. We're not the only people that are doing it, and certainly there are seminaries that are going into that world. But I'm totally with you. If you're like, I'm going to MDiv this thing, you're dead.
Yeah. So I want to be clear, and this is what I think is lost in this kind of conversation. I'm not saying, I don't think you're saying either, that the MDiv is without value, or that the people who got MDivs are not like more smart because they did that. Like, I think you are. I think that's great. I think if that was your path and you accomplish that, that's great. I don't want to take away from the MDiv. And if you just happen to have the ability and those sort of things, what I think you're saying and what I'm saying is, well, definitely what I'm saying is seminary education is going to continue to shift. That's something that's very clear. My heartbeat is that it continues to partner with the local church, however that looks. I know there are some churches that are creating their own seminaries. A large one here in Arkansas just announced it's creating its own seminary.
I saw that.
I see some of that stuff. I'm not sure that that's the route to go, but when seminaries are being creative and are trying to get out to the church instead of making the church come to them, I think that's the key there. And I love what the Church Answers University is doing. I love that education is happening across the board. So it's just going to continue to shift. But I just want to be clear, we're not dogging on MDivs or, like seminarians. We don't have anything against them. And we are both graduates of seminaries and we have those degrees. So it's not like that's not our issue. I'm just saying it's going to shift, and the seminaries that think ahead, they're going to be the ones still around later.
I was in an MDiv program many years ago, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need this. I'm just going to get an MA and then go get my PhD. And I saved so much time doing that.
You did.
You don't
and I
really
know a lot
need,
of people that do that.
Do you really need Systematic 3? I mean, do you really need it, Josh? I didn't, because it was the same class as Systematic 2.
Well, I took it in my undergrad and in my graduate. So, and that's my thing, because I had a 120-hour undergrad in biblical studies with all the languages and all the systematics and stuff. And so I always struggled with trying to go to seminary and do the exact same thing over again, just so that I could have that particular M on my resume. But hey, I'm done now, so I don't care. I don't care anymore. But yeah, it's going to continue to shift.
Church Answers University has a program in women's discipleship.
I've heard of this. Yeah,
I know. I think somebody that you love is part of it.
Sam
Her
Rainer.
name's Jackie, and she shares
Jackie
your last
too. Yes.
Yeah, she shares your last name.
We share a ton of things. The Wendy's fries, my Coca-Cola, all kinds of things we share. So yeah. I think that's all the time we have for now. And, we were joking at the top of the show that we do this every year and we just kind of guess what's going to happen next year. We don't even go back and listen to see if we were right. But I think these are just kind of set trends. But we do need to tell everybody about the guest we had at our previous show, right?
Yeah. Go back and listen to the previous episode. Why now is the time every church should consider recreation ministry. Drew Province was with us, director of partner engagement at Upward Sports, did a great job of talking about recreation ministry. They're a sponsor of the show. And I would encourage you to go to upward.org/churchanswers. When you go there, you can get connected to Upward and understand how you can start a sports ministry as a bridge into your community. This is a great way to reach the community, great way to get new families. How do I get families in my church? You can do it through Upward. By partnering with Upward, your church can get this customized program just for you to create a self-sustaining sports ministry that will fit a church of any size. Absolutely love what they're doing at Upward. So go to upward.org/churchanswers. That's where you can check out the offer from them. And I know this is a little bit longer show, but hey, it's getting close to the holiday season, and Josh and I just wanted to talk a little bit more. So,
and we love hanging out with you. So thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll do it again next week. Peace.
Upward Sports equips churches to run self-sustaining sports ministries in their communities. Whether you're a sports fanatic or on staff at a church, Upward Sports will give you all the tools you need to run a first-class sports ministry that allows you to reach families in your community. Upward Sports offers basketball, soccer, flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, baseball, and softball through league and camp offerings. At Upward Sports, we want to help your church make a difference and give you increased opportunities to share the gospel. Learn more today at upward.org/churchanswers.